Imagine a world where, overnight, the internet simply vanishes. Gone. No Google, no social media, no streaming, no emails. Not tomorrow, not in a week, but right now. One moment you're scrolling through TikTok, the next your phone freezes, your laptop goes dark, and every device connected to the web goes silent. Panic erupts. People stumble through cities, clutching phones that no longer connect to anything. Banks stop processing payments, airplanes are grounded, hospitals can't access records, and businesses everywhere halt. Sounds extreme. Consider this: the global economy depends on the internet more than it has ever admitted. By some estimates, over $5 trillion a year relies on online transactions. A sudden crash isn't just inconvenient, it's catastrophic. The first day is chaos. Traffic lights fail, and streets transform into war zones of impatient drivers. Supermarkets, dependent on online stock management, see shelves empty within hours. Families can't reach each other, emergency services are stretched thin. Governments attempt to maintain order, but their communication systems are partially web-based. Panic buys fuel and water, and rumors spread faster than any scientific fact could counter, because without the web, the chains of verified information collapse. People realize something terrifying: for decades, society has outsourced memory, communication, work, entertainment, and even critical thinking to an invisible network that, until now, seemed unbreakable. By the third day, the consequences hit deeper. Without access to financial records, banks impose emergency limits, ATMs stop dispensing cash. Economists forecast shortages, but without the ability to communicate instantly, these forecasts are useless. The stock market collapses in real time, dragging millions into financial ruin before they even understand what's happening. News organizations scramble to print physical newspapers, only to discover that most printing presses rely on internet-controlled logistics. The digital infrastructure that powered society's veins has frozen, revealing how fragile civilization truly is. Even daily life transforms overnight. Education collapses for millions of students dependent on online platforms. Remote workers discover they are, effectively, unemployed. Entertainment is stripped down to what exists offline: books, board games, outdoor activities. But the psychological toll is massive. Generations born into the digital age experience withdrawal on a scale never seen before. Anxiety, depression, and confusion spike. Some cling desperately to offline tech, like ham radios or printed maps, revealing the tiny remnants of pre-internet survival skills. Meanwhile, conspiracy theories explode. Was it a hack? Aliens? Government experiment? Rationality fights to survive against the viral spread of fear. Then, a subtle, strange pattern emerges. Communities that relied least on online infrastructure begin to stabilize faster. Rural towns with pre-internet independence, where skills like farming, repair, and barter are commonplace, adapt. Small groups reconnect in ways modern society forgot: in person, in real time, through shared effort and trust. It becomes clear that civilization's survival now hinges not on tech, but on human ingenuity and collaboration. The internet, once a tool for liberation and connection, was also a crutch, and without it, society's weaknesses are brutally exposed. So, if you can't imagine losing the web, think carefully: could you survive for a week? A month? Could your family eat, communicate, or protect itself? Or would the collapse of digital convenience reveal that, in reality, humanity had been living on a technological treadmill, blind to the abyss beneath? If your mind is already racing and your heart is pounding at the thought of a world without memes, emails, and instant answers, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next, when society's hidden skeletons, the army, the police, religion, and even science itself, are tested in ways no one predicted. By the end of the first week, the initial shock begins to reveal the deeper cracks in society. Hospitals, for example, are on the brink of collapse. Modern medicine depends on instant access to patient records, imaging, lab results, and even pharmaceutical inventories. Without the internet, nurses and doctors scramble through paper charts that haven't been updated in years. Life-saving medications run out in hours because supply chains, now blind and disorganized, can't respond to real-time demand. In some cities, emergency wards turn into triage zones reminiscent of wartime hospitals, where only the most critical patients survive. The once glamorous, tech-driven healthcare system is exposed as a brittle, dependent illusion. Meanwhile, the financial system faces a meltdown. Stock markets are frozen mid-trade, banks impose emergency cash limits, and millions panic. People who live paycheck to paycheck realize their money is just numbers on a screen, numbers that now mean nothing. Large corporations struggle to operate because cloud-based services, from payroll to internal communications, are gone. Entire industries grind to a halt: shipping, retail, tech services, even agriculture in areas dependent on smart systems. Bartering and local trade surge as people instinctively return to pre-digital survival instincts. Economists describe this as the fastest economic depression in recorded history, but for the average person, there's no analysis, just hunger, frustration, and fear. Law enforcement and the military also face unprecedented challenges. Police departments, dependent on digital records and surveillance systems, are suddenly blind. Fingerprint databases, vehicle tracking systems, even emergency response apps fail. Criminal networks adapt faster than law enforcement can react, exploiting the breakdown to expand illegal operations. The army, while more self-sufficient, is not immune. Command and control systems, reliant on satellite and internet communications, are disrupted. Exercises that once relied on real-time intelligence grind to static confusion. The military's superiority is tested not in battle but in logistics. Feeding, coordinating, and supplying personnel becomes a nightmare. Religion and belief systems undergo a surprising twist. On one hand, online sermons and digital outreach vanish overnight, leaving institutions scrambling to reach their congregations. On the other hand, the human craving for hope and meaning intensifies. People turn to local communities, small churches, and grassroots spiritual groups, many of which never depended on technology. Rituals, storytelling, and personal guidance regain prominence. Surprisingly, the crisis strengthens bonds in ways digital religion never could. Faith becomes tangible again, a lifeline rather than a notification. Education, too, fractures. Students accustomed to online learning, digital textbooks, and remote lectures are left adrift. Teachers must improvise with whatever materials they have: chalkboards, printed books, even storytelling. Standardized testing and academic progression are suspended, forcing schools to rethink not just delivery, but purpose. The divide between students who had offline skills and those who did not becomes brutally obvious. Knowledge that existed only in digital form, tutorials, guides, research papers, is temporarily lost, emphasizing the fragility of our all-knowing internet culture. But amid the chaos, pockets of adaptation emerge. Local networks, ham radios, walkie-talkies, even manually maintained community boards, become critical lifelines. People rediscover survival skills once considered obsolete: gardening, first aid, mechanical repair, navigation without GPS. A new appreciation for face-to-face communication, real human connection, and tangible knowledge spreads rapidly. A strange, almost radical truth becomes clear: civilization had depended on the internet not only for convenience but as a crutch. Without it, humanity is forced to confront its vulnerability, and its resilience. By the second week, the human psyche begins to crack under the pressure. The internet had been more than a tool, it was a security blanket, a pacifier for fear, boredom, and uncertainty. With it gone, anxiety skyrockets. Social media addicts experience withdrawal symptoms akin to substance dependency: shaking hands, insomnia, irritability. People who define themselves through online identity, likes, followers, shares, feel an existential void. Entire generations realize they have forgotten how to interact without a screen, how to spend time alone without curated content. Public behavior shifts dramatically. Crowds grow restless, protests erupt not just against governments but against technology itself. "Why didn't anyone prepare us?" becomes a common cry. Panic buying turns into organized riots in some cities, with people taking anything they can carry. Without digital banking, cash becomes king, but cash is scarce. Survival instincts override social norms. Crimes of opportunity skyrocket. Communities with strong pre-existing offline networks stabilize faster, while those reliant entirely on digital infrastructure descend into chaos. The army and police face their most extreme tests. Police can no longer rely on digital forensics or surveillance, they must patrol blind, relying on instinct and physical presence. Militaries, cut off from satellite communications, must revert to old-fashioned coordination, couriers, radio, and pre-planned protocols. Training exercises become real-life simulations of collapse, and leadership is tested in ways no digital algorithm could anticipate. Surprisingly, some small units outperform expectations because they had already practiced offline survival drills, showing that adaptability, not technology, is the true metric of resilience. The black market explodes. Items once mundane, batteries, paper, fuel, food, become priceless. Hackers, suddenly powerless without servers and networks, pivot to physical crime. Skills like mechanical repair, medicine, navigation, and agriculture surge in value. Education systems that emphasize theory over practical skills are exposed as dangerously inadequate. Survival becomes a meritocracy of real-world competence. Those who once scoffed at old-school skills now become the leaders of their communities. Religion and philosophy take an unexpected turn. Without constant online distractions, people begin seeking meaning in tangible ways. Local congregations, meditation groups, and community gatherings flourish. Mysticism, folklore, and practical philosophy resurface, not as entertainment, but as guidance. A surprising truth emerges: in the absence of the internet, humans instinctively return to storytelling and shared wisdom, rediscovering collective memory that had been outsourced to servers and cloud storage. Meanwhile, the psychological divide deepens. Those who can improvise, adapt, and learn offline begin thriving. Those who cannot are overwhelmed. Anxiety, depression, and paranoia reach historical highs. Mental health professionals, themselves handicapped by the collapse of digital communication, struggle to respond. Yet, this chaos catalyzes a radical restructuring of social norms. Communities form spontaneously, based on competence, trust, and mutual necessity rather than status, wealth, or influence online. And here's the kicker: while fear dominates the headlines, the most radical survivors discover something profound. The internet had promised freedom, but it delivered dependence. By losing it, humans rediscover autonomy, creativity, and problem-solving abilities long buried under layers of convenience. For some, it's liberation disguised as catastrophe. The lesson is brutal, simple, and viral. Society was fragile, but humanity is resilient beyond imagination, if we are forced to remember how. By the third week, the dust begins to settle, and the first signs of long-term adaptation emerge. Nations, economies, and communities start to reorganize, but not in the ways anyone expected. Countries that were digitally dependent, with sprawling online bureaucracies and smart infrastructure, struggle most. Government services grind to a halt, tax collection is delayed, law enforcement remains overstretched, and emergency response relies entirely on analog systems. Meanwhile, smaller nations or regions that never fully relied on digital networks begin to stabilize faster. The global balance of power, once dominated by tech giants and internet-driven economies, begins to shift. Local economies explode in creativity. Barter systems, once considered archaic, make a powerful comeback. Communities organize skill swaps and resource exchanges. Electricians, carpenters, plumbers, and farmers suddenly become invaluable, and education systems are forced to pivot, practical skills are prioritized over abstract theory. The stock market, frozen for weeks, is replaced in some regions by local commodity trading and cooperative enterprises. Money becomes secondary to survival skills and community trust. People begin asking a question that had been ignored for decades: do we actually need the internet, or did we just think we did? Transportation, logistics, and supply chains are completely reimagined. Automated warehouses, delivery apps, and GPS-reliant fleets collapse. Trucks, trains, and ships must operate on pre-digital schedules, relying on human coordination and contingency planning. Some companies fail entirely, while others that maintained analog redundancies thrive. Airlines, for instance, must abandon automated routing systems and rely on manual air traffic control, causing delays but also highlighting the danger of total dependence on digital infrastructure. Humanity is learning, painfully but effectively, that redundancy isn't optional, it's survival. Even the cultural sphere undergoes a transformation. Artists, performers, and writers discover a sudden renaissance. With streaming platforms and social media gone, people seek live, tangible experiences. Theater, music, and literature flourish locally. Ideas spread through word of mouth and printed media, reviving creativity in a way that no algorithm ever could. Information, once instantaneous, becomes precious. Communities organize discussion groups, debates, and workshops. People are forced to think critically, remember, and connect, rather than rely on Google for instant answers. Governments face the hardest challenge: maintaining order without digital control. Military forces are deployed not to conquer but to protect critical infrastructure, power grids, water systems, and hospitals. Citizens begin self-organizing neighborhood watch programs and mutual aid networks. Those who adapt quickly gain influence, those who cling to digital habits fall behind. The political landscape transforms: efficiency, competence, and real-world leadership suddenly outweigh charisma, online presence, and bureaucratic titles. A radical truth emerges: society's previous hierarchy was designed for the internet age, and now it's irrelevant. Religion and philosophy continue to gain unexpected power. Offline rituals, storytelling, and moral guidance become central to community cohesion. People who had relied on likes, shares, and digital validation discover that real respect, trust, and influence must be earned through action and empathy. Some predict the rise of new spiritual movements, grounded not in dogma but in practicality and collective survival. Communities learn that faith, whether in people, values, or higher purpose, is as vital as food, water, and shelter. And yet, in this radical restructuring, one undeniable pattern emerges: the internet wasn't just convenience, it was dependency. Losing it forces humanity to confront its weaknesses and adapt. Skills, resilience, and local trust become the currency of survival. Those who embrace the challenge thrive, those who resist it falter. Civilization is being rewritten, and the rules are brutally simple: adapt or perish. Months pass, and the world has transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Countries have begun to adapt, but the global landscape is unrecognizable. Economies once driven by digital transactions now operate on trust, skills, and tangible resources. Corporations that survived did so because they maintained analog systems or possessed practical expertise. Tech giants, once untouchable, are humbled. Their influence wanes as societies rediscover the value of physical labor, direct communication, and local resilience. The global military balance shifts as well. Countries that relied heavily on cyber warfare find themselves vulnerable, while those with disciplined, traditional command and control methods hold an unexpected advantage. Armies are forced to operate without instantaneous intelligence, relying on scouts, local knowledge, and human decision-making. Surprisingly, this has reduced some forms of conflict. Without automated systems and remote coordination, the chaos of digital overreach is replaced by slower, more deliberate strategies. In effect, war becomes human again, rather than technological. Socially, the world has fractured into communities defined not by geography alone but by adaptability and resourcefulness. Cities that were digital hubs experience slow, uneven recovery, while towns that maintained pre-internet self-sufficiency flourish. People return to hands-on skills, agriculture, mechanics, construction, medicine. Education systems emphasize survival, practical knowledge, and interpersonal skills over digital literacy. The psychological impact is profound. Anxiety and depression remain widespread, but communities that foster real connection and shared purpose begin to heal. Religion, philosophy, and local governance experience a renaissance. Communities seek moral and practical guidance from leaders who act rather than post online content. Faith becomes tangible, helping neighbors, organizing resources, teaching skills. People reconnect with rituals, traditions, and shared values that the internet had obscured. Surprisingly, the absence of digital distraction fosters deeper reflection, debate, and critical thinking. Human creativity explodes as people invent, adapt, and build offline solutions to previously unimaginable problems. Yet, the lesson is stark and uncompromising. The internet, once celebrated as the pinnacle of progress, was also a crutch that masked humanity's fragility. Losing it exposed weaknesses in every sector: finance, education, healthcare, law enforcement, communication, and even personal identity. The collapse forced radical adaptation. Those who could improvise, learn offline, and rely on human connection thrived. Those who clung to digital dependency faltered. Civilization did not end, but it transformed into something far more grounded, tangible, and resilient. So what does this mean for us today? It's a warning and a challenge. Dependence on technology is seductive, but survival, resilience, and true power are rooted in skills, adaptability, and human connection. The internet is a tool, not a lifeline, and the day it disappears, society will reveal its unvarnished truth. Now it's your turn. Imagine this scenario in your own life. Could you survive without the internet for a week, a month, or a year? What skills, relationships, or strategies would you need to thrive? Comment below with your thoughts, and suggest the next radical scenario you want us to explore. Maybe it's even scarier, or more liberating, than this one. The conversation is just beginning, and your ideas could inspire the next viral exploration.